and delighted to say, joining me today is commentator Sam Armstrong. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
So much. I mean, just so much to talk about today. We're going to, I mean, I want to actually, I'll put the number out for you guys because I'd love you to get in touch. I'm sure you do want to. I know you've been calling in to Jez's show this morning about this, but the ex-Royal Marine. So, you know, he writes a Facebook post in the middle of the Southport riots, at the time when everyone did think that it was an illegal migrant, a boat migrant who had committed those awful crimes at Southport, leaving 3 children dead, 8 life-changing injuries, 8 children and 2 adults as well. And he wrote something, but he wasn't even trying. I mean, literally, he was absolutely categoric in talking about peaceful protest. Write to your councillor, write to your MP, you know, organise meetings. I mean, he actually was blatant, open about that. But he basically got acquitted after 17 minutes. He's now been banned from working with children. I mean, you know, including his own daughter's kids' football team, because basically, oh well, you know, could be a risk. I mean, he was charged with hate speech. He got acquitted. He's still not allowed to work with children. He's now suing the local so-called safeguarding board for 25 grand. What is your reaction to that? Well, the number to call is 0344 499 1000. Text the word talk in your message to 87222. Get in touch with us on X at Talk TV. Calls are charged at the national rate. Text cost 1, standard network rate message. Sam, you do a lot of work with the Free Speech Union as well. I mean, that case brought against Jamie Michael was bad enough, given the Facebook post. It wasn't a he said, she said. I mean, it was there in black and white. We know what he wrote. But the fact that he's been stopped from doing this wonderful volunteer work that he does with actually 2 different football teams is outrageous.
Yeah, Jamie's a mate of mine. Let me tell you a little bit about him. He grew up in the Pennycraig, the same part of South Wales that he still lives in. He was a brilliant footballer. He got called up to join the Manchester United kids team. He played for Wales as a 14, 15 and 16-year-old and went off to play professional football, including playing for Cardiff for a little while. His career fizzled out with a couple of injuries and he joined the Royal Marines, and while there he served his country with enormous distinction. And having sat opposite him and heard him tell me about what he saw in Iraq, I can only imagine. And what has his country given him in response to that?
Exactly.
It has taken the fact that he coaches his daughter's football team out of his spare time so that he can encourage his daughter to play football, like a lot of dads. And it has used it as a weapon against him. And one element I think of this is really important, which is, and I'm sorry to make it political, but I think it is political. When he posted that video in the aftermath of Southport, did very well.
Yeah, sorry, a video rather than a post,
It did very well locally because a lot of people know him. I've been to Pennycraig with him and I can tell you, everybody there knows Jamie. And he was reported by whom? By a staffer working for the local Labour Assembly member, Buffy Williams, the Assembly member there. She reported him to the police.
Buffy?
Buffy. She's
there you
called
go.
Buffy.
Case closed.
She reported him to the police. As a result, they came around to his office where he works as a sports massage person, and they arrested him. 4 officers came and arrested him, banged him up for 20 days on remand in prison, and then at the end of it...
But thank God he said, no, I'm not pleading guilty other people who forced it.
Got a Free Speech Union lawyer. Free Speech Union lawyer took it to a jury, got him off in 17 minutes, unanimously, by a decision of a Merthyr Tydfil jury trial. Can we tell why they're trying to scrap juries yet? What happens at the end of it? His Labour local authority turns around and says, you are a danger to kids. The 2 worst things you can be called in this country are a danger to kids and a racist.
And he was accused of both, basically.
Labour have accused him of both because they think they're a threat. He's a threat to them in the South Wales valleys, where every single poll tells you in May next year, reform are coming
But this is it. I mean, look, it was a 12-minute video, just so people know, because again, this is what happened. I apologise to Lucy Connolly last week because, I believed a lot of the reports. Again, we know the CPS said, the police had lied about what she had written and other posts she'd written. Charged with inciting racial hatred. He described some migrants, not all migrants, some migrants, as scumbags and psychopaths. It's a 12-minute video. But he also was very clear. He wrote, so he said in the video, and he's got 2 young daughters. Again, you've got a load of girls have just been stabbed. Some have died, and you've got 2 young daughters. As you know, this affects you more. He's looked very upset in the video, and he urged people to get ready. And he said, it doesn't mean getting bats and knives and stuff. I'm talking about doing things the right way, getting in big groups, having meetings, going to the council, police, the politicians and the councillors. I mean, he's literally urging people to take part in a democratic process to protest against a risk to our country. I mean, seriously, it's no wonder. A jury taking 17 minutes is a jury literally getting in, having a cup of tea, having a vote, and then going, thank you very much. That's how quick that is. There was not even, they didn't even bother having a conversation because they didn't need to, because it was so obvious. And this is the thing. Again and again and again, we've seen this. We've seen this with, like, you know, UKIP supporters, Brexit supporters, not being allowed to foster, not being allowed to adopt because they're considered unsuitable. Now, this is just obscene. This is so wrong. And this is kind of, you know, social engineering. And as the Free Speech Union said, I'm going to declare an interest. I'm a member. I don't get paid by them or anything. I'm a member of the union. I think everyone's crazy who speaks in the public eye who isn't. If you're on social media, you need to be a member of the Free Speech Union, as far as I'm concerned. But they, you know, it's this idea that actually the process is the punishment. Yep. So we're going to see, well, he got arrested, or he got charged, or I could win, but I'll probably lose my job, and people will be looking at me and pointing fingers at me, so it's not worth the risk. And it does silence people.
Everybody knows, because everyone has done it. They just think it's not worth it. It's not worth speaking up at work when there's nonsense going on. It's not worth going on social media. Yep. It's not worth standing up to this government, because I don't think this is happening in isolation. No. What we see is a Labour government that was elected, we've said many times.
This happened under the Tories as well.
Well, but the following things did not happen under the Tories. And by the way, actually, the Free Speech Union, as we say in the articles, had 15 of these cases, none before 2024.
OK, that's interesting.
So this is all a post-Southport phenomenon, actually. And I think this is a Labour thing, because what we see is the following. We have a Labour government that has said it is going to delay and defer elections to 2028. It has said that it is going to refer people as paedophiles. It is going to go and arrest people. It is going to scrap jury trials. It is going to clamp down further and further and further on online speech through the Online Safety Act, and fine platforms potentially billions of dollars if they don't shut people up. Yep. And what I see is going to change the vote to allow 16s and 17-year-olds to vote. What I see is the most unpopular Prime Minister in history, determined to use every single lever available to him to shut us up, to shut us out, and to shut down dissent towards him.
And to cling on to power.
This is a very quiet, a very British, but very real coup going on before our eyes. That
is a very interesting point. I wrote a piece for The Sun at the end of last week after the jury trials and the cancelling of those. I mean, you're delaying election for 2 years, 3 years in total. These mayoral elections in basically the entire home counties, the whole of the South East. I think some people are saying it's 5 million votes. I understand it's 7 million voters who are actually affected. And genuinely, you know, this is about utter contempt and disdain for people. And this goes into the whole, like, let's go back in the EU, let the bureaucrats decide, let's let the judges, not the juries, decide. Let's just not even bother with these elections. We'll just, let the bureaucrats decide everything. Every quango, everybody like that, that's what they want to decide everything. And it is very, very obvious what's going on. What do you make? And this sort of ties in with this, because this gentleman's concern, Jamie Michael, was about. And Jamie, by the way, we did hope to have him on the show today. If you were available, we would love to talk to you on the show. But this US document, America has just released its latest national security strategy. And basically, it says, in these exact words, that Europe is facing civilizational erasure. That the governance that we've got at the moment by out-of-touch elites, the mass uncontrolled immigration, both legal and illegal, and the complete and utter just sort of absolute trashing of European civilization's culture and values. This whole sort of, these idiots on the left who sort of go, all cultures are equal. No, they're not. No, they're not, because we're not en masse trying to move to the Middle East. OK, Dubai, that's because people can live as if they live in the West. People aren't moving en masse to Pakistan or to China or to Nigeria. No, they're not. People are coming en masse to Europe and to other Western civilizations. Why? Because they are better cultures to live in, full stop. But the point is, they won't be for very long if you have a level of immigration, and we've seen the falling birth rates among the, let's use the term, native population, the indigenous population, as opposed to immigrant population. Virtually the entire increase in population in this country, and it has been huge, has been the arrival of immigrants and immigrants' children rather than the indigenous population. And people coming particularly from very different cultures with very different values, yes, different religions, just different belief systems, that is basically eroding our civilization. I mean, there's an element where you think, oh, I don't want the Americans telling us what to do. But when they're, when you're a friend and you're calling it out, we criticise America, we have our opinions on, Trump or Kamala or Trump or Clinton or Trump or Biden. They're allowed to say it when it affects their national security, because they're saying we may not be a reliable security partner in the future. And given that we've already got, 5 MPs for Gaza, if you think you represent Gaza rather than Bradford or somewhere in Britain, you are not going to be a reliable security partner to our allies, are you?
Britain, France, Germany, many other European countries whose civilizations have stood for 1,000 years will not exist in any recognisable form within my lifetime, unless something very dramatic happens. We saw there was a piece in the Telegraph over the weekend that said, who's the chief beneficiary of Labour lifting the 2-child cap on benefits? Well, let's just say the areas, the constituencies where the biggest benefit is likely to be found: Bradford, Bolton, Birmingham, inner city Manchester. What we are seeing is a very determined effort to essentially say that the entirety of Western civilization is problematic and should shut up. And meanwhile, we should allow mass migration to permanently and fundamentally alter the realities of our societies. J.D. Vance, Donald Trump are right when they say, to an extent, and this is by no means universal, but to an extent, the enemy is within. The people that will change this country in the next 50 to 60 years to take a foreign policy which is very much antithetical to the United States and to the one that we've had for a very long time, are here already. They are now sitting in our parliament. Do you honestly think that those 5 Gazan MPs are just going to stay 5 Gazan MPs? No. They're going to grow. And when they do... And it's sectarian voting. It's people voting for someone because they share their religion or their heritage background. No, it's not.
That's not healthy. That's not healthy. I don't vote for someone because of their religion.
It's because they share their... And I'm sorry to put it this highly, it's because they share their prejudice. The vast majority of their voters are motivated by a bizarre, racist, just call it what it is, racist hatred of Israel and Jews. And they want to vote for MPs that represent their racist views towards Israel and Jews. Now, look, they may well disagree, and that's just my opinion, but...
They think they're pro-Palestine, but the evidence suggests very differently.
The evidence suggests very different. And when they grow, and when the Labour Party in 10, 15, 20 years' time needs their votes, those MPs' votes, to form a majority, they are going to sit in the cabinet of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. They are going to be partly responsible for who gets to press the big red nuclear missile. And if we had a working deterrent, which it sounds like we don't have, it would be a very real threat to the US. So is it any surprise that our closest ally in the world is putting it in their national security strategy as one of the big mega threats that a nuclear armed state on their doorstep
it's not.
might be taken over?
They're calling it like it is. And again, it's important that they do, because we do need to have these conversations without everyone getting all squeamish. And, again, for me, it's about culture more than anything else. But again, it's just like, what do you think is British people? If you talk about this on social media, people go, oh, what do you mean by British values? Wait, you don't know. You don't know what British values are. I know what British values are.
Yeah, and do you know what? It's more than just multiculturalism and
also,
diversity.
anyone who says diversity is our strength, there's no evidence whatsoever that diversity is any country's strength. And people talk about, oh, well, America is a melting pot. No. People don't arrive and go, I'm going to set up my own culture and speak my own language and have my own sort of allegiances in America. No. You become an Italian American. You become an Arab American. Asian American, and you put your hand over your heart when the flag is raised, and you sing the national anthem, and you ascribe to those values. That's a very different. It's about come here from wherever you come from, but you join this culture. It's a very different thing from what Europe's done, and Britain, France, and Germany have made a terrible job of this, which is come over here, bring your culture, bring your values, carry on. You can have your Sharia courts, you can do all this, that we can all make a little bit of a fuss about FGM, and they go and then they talk to daughters, kids in school, like my daughter and her friends, about FGM. Yeah, not a risk. No risk among our friends. Why don't you tackle the people who it's a risk among? And then they pretend that we need to tackle the outliers. No, these aren't outliers. This is a culture that, you're bringing in cultures from a number of different countries, from a number of different parts of the world, which are totally alien. And look, there are people who, again, there are plenty of people who've come from those countries in the past who have come here to make a life here in the West for freedom and economic benefit, and who have completely settled here and are making a great contribution. Often, interestingly, it is their children. Yeah. And we've seen this actually, again, and no one sensible is saying, second generation, everyone's a terrorist, or everyone, not saying anything remotely like that, just before the idiots try and say I am. But in the cases where we have seen Islamist terrorism, which is the single biggest threat to people's safety in this country, in terms, it's not the far right. It is largely either immigrants or the children of immigrants who often feel they're caught between two different cultures and they haven't felt assimilated. We need to deal with that, and you can't deal with it when you bring in another 2 million people every year. Yeah,
I can't actually put it any better. I was in Washington DC in America, being driven by a Pakistani American, and he was very keen to point this out, Pakistani American cab driver, and he said to me, I don't understand what's going on in Britain. You have millions of people coming over from Pakistan and attempting to recreate Pakistan in Britain.
Why don't you stay in Pakistan?
As he said, I left Pakistan because I didn't want to live in a Muslim country, because it was a basket case, because it was being run really badly. So I came to live in what he described in America as a Christian country. Broadly, it applies Judeo-Christian values, as our country certainly did. And his view was he just couldn't understand it, and this is absolutely right.
Just nailed it.
I don't want Pakistani politics in British politics. Look at the results there. Look at how many people, frankly, have a basic functioning life with, proper hygiene and all the rest of it, proper economy, proper functioning industry.
I think you'll find that's British colonialism's fault. I'm sure you got that memo, no?
Well, I do know that, obviously, I'm now totally unsuitable to work with children. And
I think we all agreed that already, didn't we?
I must immediately be brought up by a state-sanctioned judge to determine whether or not I'm a hate criminal.
Yeah, I'm also unsuitable to work with children because I think the children should do as they're told, which apparently makes you a Nazi now anyway. But anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts on all this. I think this national security strategy for America is really, really significant. I like it when people point out it's a big red neon flashing sign, and we all know it, and then everyone gets all anxious about talking about it. Gotta talk about it. I'd love to hear your thoughts. 0344 499 1000. One person who does talk about a lot of this stuff is Nigel Farage. Doesn't actually go as far as I think a lot of people would like. There's all these fallings out over the years with various people. But he's now, not only have we got all those childhood racism claims and the playground stuff. Now, I'm sorry, I'm of the view that Nigel Farage was probably a nasty little piece of work when he was at his boys' public school back in the 70s and 80s. I think a lot of people were. I think that was probably the norm at boys' public schools. I don't think I would have liked Nigel Farage very much when he was at school, but I know certainly in the adulthood, I've known him for, about 30 years. I have never heard him, genuinely never heard him say anything even close to being racist. If I thought he had, I would have said it. I would have spoken out about it. I really, really would have. But he's now been reported to the police over election fraud, over election expenses in Clacton, the last general election. Now, it's outside the normal 1-year statute limitations. It's a report from Richard Everett. He's a former Reform councillor. He was a member of the campaign team that won him his seat. But he's also someone who basically was thrown out of the party. The Reform spokesman claimed he was expelled from Reform in August for allegedly sexually inappropriate behaviour in the party's Clacton office. Those claims are denied, I must stress. But it does look like a disgruntled former employee has basically decided to sort of throw Nigel Farage under the bus. Now, I don't know whether the election expenses were to the letter or not. I think an awful lot of election expenses in this country aren't to the letter. It's 20 grand for the local constituency campaign, which is virtually nothing. And then was it 20 million for the national campaign? I think we've got a massive problem with election spending and election funding in this country. We need to get to the bottom of that. But it does seem to me we're just getting one thing after another thrown at Nigel Farage. Why? Because he's ahead in the polls. And that's why it's happening. Who are we kidding?
Yeah, there is a concerted, organised attempt to denigrate, to discredit and to destabilise Nigel Farage being launched. And I don't normally talk in these terms, but I would say it quite clearly, by the establishment. That is who...
Aren't you part of the establishment?
Well, if I am, they've never told me so.
Do you get a membership card? I mean, is it laminated?
It certainly hasn't felt like it at times. But look, there are, every single day, newspaper journalists that are being put on to get Nigel campaigns. And the big question is, will it stick? Or have the British public perhaps had enough of these kind of stories, had enough of all of a sudden someone's doing very well, threatening the established order of things, and, you know,
I do want people to play by the book. I'm not entirely sure that everyone who's come up against Nigel Farage, I mean, 7 seats that he fought and lost, that they played by the book. I don't think any political party plays completely by the book on these things. I don't think they've done. There have been plenty of cases where it's been some very clear question marks about the campaigns against Nigel Farage and everything but the kitchen sink thrown at him. It is important that everyone does.
Well, yes.
And if you're caught out.
On the other hand, why now?
Yeah.
Why this guy? Why has this story made its way to the front page of national newspapers all at the same time? And why are there every day somebody different from Dulwich Boys School turning out with a slightly different story?
Those allegations and we're going to talk to Michael Crick, who wrote a book, and actually that's what brought this to everyone's notice a few years ago. But actually, I mean, some of these first allegations emerged back in 2013, so before Brexit campaigning, when Nigel Farage was sort of big in the UKIP campaign. So these allegations have been made for quite a long time, and there are enough people making these allegations that a lot of people might go, no smoke without fire. Again, as I say, I think that he probably said some pretty nice things, but the point that he made on Friday, which is a very powerful press conference at the BBC, is like, this is at a time when you were showing, 8.5 Hot Mum and goodness knows what, and the black and white minstrel show and things. It was a very, very different time. People said things that people are utterly and quite rightly shocked by now. And I would think that shows, haven't we come a long way as a country? Isn't that a good thing? I mean, I don't want to get PC, I'm not into PC, but yeah, I would much rather that it wasn't acceptable for people to shout racist slurs at people in the playground, for goodness sake.
Julia, I am not a member of the Reform Party. I didn't vote Reform at the last election. I am a member of a different political party. However, this country faces a toxic combination of permanently low growth, a government that is collapsing all around us, the biggest security challenges we've faced, certainly in my lifetime, definitely the last couple of generations, mass migration that is out of control, and a British public that are angrier than ever before. And I don't care in the least the kinds of songs that were being sung in a Dulwich school playground in 1970. And I do not think that millions of people out there in the country think that they care in the least either. And they look at these stories, they listen to people yabbering on about them all day, personalities this, school playground stuff this. It is irrelevant, and it gets them angry because this country needs solutions. And what does the establishment offer? The same tired menu of little sleaze that they've dug up from goodness knows when.
And you just know, you can see these sort of Lib Dems and Labour people go, oh, we've got him now. Well, good luck with that. You keep thinking that, but just look at the polls.